Hey everybody, and thanks for watching Woodcrest Bonsai. Today I'm going to work on this Chinese juniper. I believe it is what is called a parsonii juniper, which is a very popular landscape plant in these areas. This is the oldest juniper bonsai I have, and it's not super healthy, but it has some beautiful movement and it certainly needs some work. It's been wired for over a year now, and I'm having a very difficult time seeing where it's even cut into the bark. It's overgrown and it has some dead, like this lower branch right here is completely dead. So I'll be taking that off. And I don't like this branch here. Probably could wire it like that, but then we have these two branches both competing visually. This one's coming off because it's dead. And then I really haven't decided which one of these to keep. First thing to do is take that one off. I'm also going to work on the deadwood. There are two veins of deadwood. There's one right here, and then if we turn it, there's another one that starts back here and comes all the way up into here. This is all dead too. It has a lot of lichen and things like that. So if we look at it right here, we've got a lot of lichen that's actually on the dead wood. So I've got a toothbrush with a little bit of soapy water, and I'm just going to start trying to scrub that lichen off. And I probably need a toothbrush with harder bristles. And I have some wire brushes, but that's too much, at least for me. I don't want to do that. So work on this. And then the other shari, dead wood on a bonsai is called shari if it moves down the trunk, if you're brand new to bonsai. And shari is spelt S-H-A-R-I. So just clean that up. And then I'm going to add some lime sulfur. So I'm going to put the camera back down here. And lime sulfur is a fungicide. It's pretty nasty stuff, stinks bad, but most sulfur compounds stink bad. And it's actually a fungicide that's marketed to be diluted about 1 tablespoon per gallon and then sprayed on trees as a fungicide. But bonsai people use it full strength to paint the nabari, also as a fungicide. And it goes on kind of a weird orange color, but it will dry to pure white. Some people think it's too stark. It's a very stark white. And you can see the results of lime sulfur if you go to just about any video that features a display of Japanese trees. There are many, many different people that take videos of Japanese shows, and you'll see many of them with massive amounts of shari, and they're just amazing, you know, the twisting and the turning and everything. But that shari is typically pure white, and that's from the lime sulfur. Some people don't like that starkness, so they add a little India ink, actually. And that will darken the color once it cures. to be a little bit darker. And I suppose you could add massive amounts of India ink. And even though you can't see it, the dead wood comes all the way down into here. So that's the first step. Is to get that lime sulfur on there. And I think the next step is going to be removing that dead limb. So that dead limb is this one right here, down here. You can see it's just dead. But it starts way up inside. So the first thing I'm going to do is take off the wire. And since I'm a wire saver, I'm going to unravel it. Now when you're unraveling wire, I really like to do the best I can to straighten it out as I'm taking it off. It almost always needs more straightening. And this wire may not be used on just this branch. It appears it goes up into other places. So So what other branch is it attached to? It appears as though it comes down to this one here. So can we even see what we're doing here? There's the branch that is dead, that needs to come off. And it's got a little bit of gin right here. Can you see that? So I think I'm going to take it to about here. So I take my concave cutters and cut about halfway through, and then take the branch and rip it down. And because this wood is already dead, it's going to be pretty difficult to remove the cambium. It's much, much easier to make gin on living wood. And that's a work in progress, but that, at least that branch is gone. Of course, now we have the wire just flying around like everything. Yeah, and it's also attached to this branch here. So now that we've taken that off, still I'm not quite sure what I want to do with either this branch, which is the branch that the wire that I just took off of the dead branch is also wired with, or this branch here. You know, I think I might pause and do the white towel trick where we just stick a piece of cloth over each branch and see what happens to the design. So I need to go get something like that. All right, so let's just pretend it's white. It's actually incredibly dirty. So then we drape it. Oh, it's got a nice hole in it too. Drape it over this one to hide it. And we can move it out of the way like that. So is that, and leave this way down. Or, so I could wire this branch pretty much to take that bigger branch's place. So let me just take it out of the way for a second. And then do it on here with this one. Doesn't want to stay. Stay. Okay, and then bring this guy into there. Which I think for me is better. I like it more. And actually, once that limb is gone, I can bring this guy even further into here. Now it does cut across the bark. It does cut across the trunk because it's actually coming from this limb, which is going that way. So, still not quite sure what to do with it. I don't like it cutting across the trunk. So this one may go. And this one, I can just wire this out of the way for now. I think I did attempt to bring this all the way around like this. But my wire was not strong enough to hold it. And then the gin that I just created is probably way too long. It's also visually cutting across this branch, so I may have to shorten the gin because I don't like that. Oh yes, I think if that thing can go up into here, whoop, just cracked it. Hey, but it's now in place. Okay. Even though this is an old tree, it's certainly still a work in progress. And I'm also thinking very seriously of lifting it when I repot it. I'm not going to repot it this year. It's still pretty loose in the soil, so I'm not going to repot it. But it could go like this and probably have a completely different look. But that's for the next repotting. And now it's got a lot of excess growth. If we come back. So now that I've cracked this wire into place, this branch into place, I want to take off all of that lower growth coming this way. And there's some dead places. So I wouldn't call this tree super healthy, but I don't think it's really... Actually, that whole branch may be dead. Right there. But we can wire that guy into place like that. And then, if we look in here, I want to take off some of this here, and some of this here. And when I'm pruning junipers, I try to go down to the base and then remove the whole thing and let this little stuff take its place. I don't want to pinch like this. I mean, you can do that, but you'll create usually brown tips on all that, and you especially don't want to chop like that. If you chop like that, you'll get nasty brown tips just all over the place. See, and this limb is actually coming from here. If we brought it upright, this limb could possibly come off too. I really want the apex to come up more like this, but there's a weak area right here that is going to be difficult. So once again, I'm not a let's do everything all at once kind of guy. So right now, I'm just trying to take stock. It definitely needed to remove that dead branch, obviously. And it's actually got a piece of wire, almost like a guy wire on it. Get my wire cutters. Let's take that off of there. It's not going to come, so I'll just cut it up here. There, now I can shorten that gin, because I don't like the way it's. I guess I could wire this branch up more. And bring the bottom down more. And see, because I took the wire off of the dead branch, that's also was used to wire this branch. I have no more anchor. But that looks better. That makes the gin less ugly. And then I want to take this branch. Am I out of the viewfinder? Pretty close. Take this branch and shorten a lot of it up. Like I said, I take off the whole piece of growth at the base and allow all this little stuff to take its place. Never want to just shear it like a hedge. It's looking better already. Not entirely sure I like that branch where it is. I may still take the gin and bring the branch back down like that, because I think that's looks better. And like I said, I really want the apex to be more up like this, but I'm afraid to wire it because there's a very weak place right in here. It's almost impossible to see, but it's like right where I want to put the stress on the branch. And I already cracked this one, but that's not all that big of a deal because I had this little guy to take its place if that all dies. And a cracked juniper branch doesn't necessarily mean it's going to die, as long as there's still some sap going to the branch. Try to reduce the top a little bit. Okay, so it's looking better. You really need some wire into there. Now what I want to do when I bring up the apex is I want to mimic this curve. So when I come up into here, I want the apex to mimic this curve. Come up and be more curved to mimic the bottom. And that's going to be a little tricky too, because this straight area right here, which is also where it's weak. So sometimes you just need to work with what you've got. And I did not start this tree. I got this tree pretty much like it is. So, you know, and believe me, you give me a tree of yours and I will make it mine in no time at all. Which means I will completely restyle it. Well, maybe not completely, but you know, I have a vision for the way I like my trees to look, and it's different than yours. And yours is different than everybody else's, and it's not good or bad. We just each have that vision. And I think I've told this story before, but I just love this story. That Ben Oki, who was also a very famous bonsai artist in America, he once came to my house because when he used to take the entire month of January and travel across the entire state of Florida, every club, but he didn't want to stay in hotels, so he stayed at people's houses. So I was lucky enough to host him at my house. And he told me, and I know it just almost sounds crazy, because he taught hundreds of people in California. He was the curator, oh God, I forget, but he was the curator of a pretty famous bonsai collection in, I believe, San Diego. Probably should have researched this better before I start talking about him. But anyway, none of that's important. The important part is that he told me that if you showed him a picture or a tree that had been styled by one of his students that had taken his classes over the years, he could tell you who styled it. He could tell you whose tree it was just by looking at the tree. Out of all the hundreds of people, that's how distinctive our bonsai style is. So if you're new and you're wondering, man, well, how do I do this? What do I do? You know, there are certain rules to follow, certainly. But it's all really about that personal expression of what you think you want. So this tree is cleaned up so much better now. I still don't like this limb because this limb detracts from your eye moving up the trunk. My eye just goes straight down to this limb. So, not quite sure. Let's do the incredibly dirty white piece of cloth trick again. Maybe it can come off entirely. And if it does come off entirely, then I will probably not make it gin. Yeah, you know, I actually really like that. Let me know in the comment section what you think. Should I take that limb off? I'm not going to do it right now, but really, I think the tree, now your eye follows the crook of the branches instead of following this branch. I probably won't turn it into gin because then I'll have two competing gins that are very close to each other. So my guess is that if we take this one off, I'll take it off completely and maybe just a tiny little snag, and then leave this gin as it is. And then there's the back, which also needs a little bit of maintenance. And it's the same kind of thing. Just remove a lot of the growth on top and let the interior growth fill in. And on a finished tree like this, this is really the meditative part. If I was just by myself and working this tree, you can just get lost in the tree. And that is really, for me, a huge part of bonsai, is just that meditative state that you can reach as you're trimming a tree. You know, I love to propagate. I love to grow things from seed and from cuttings, and you've seen that on my channel, where it seems like a huge amount of videos I've been posting lately are just where I cut things back to just sticks. And that's because they're just in the formative stages. But this is really the essence. Once you've got finished trees, this is the essence of bonsai. Oh, look at that. That branch is dead too. Completely. So let's take the wire off of it too. And since it's in the back, gin in the back is pretty much unnecessary because you're never going to see it anyway if it's in display. So just take that puppy off. And of course I've lost my concave cutters. Can't take me anywhere. What happened to them? Oh, this is so embarrassing. Oh, there they are on the ground. Well, that's not the first time. And it won't be the last. Maybe I'll play with this. Here's some more dead, so I'm going to take it off. But if you notice, see, there's a little bit of growth right there. Now, this is juvenile growth, and hey, well, sometimes that just happens. But so those little tiny pieces that you see right there, that's juvenile growth. That will fill in where this dead branch is gone. And sometimes the best way to keep juvenile growth from growing is to do what I'm doing as far as trimming an entire limb. There's another piece that's dead. Okay, so let's do this guy. We'll just practice making gin on this guy here. Even though, like I said, gin in the back of a tree is entirely unnecessary. So you cut, I cut with my concave cutters about halfway through, and then rip it down. And then remove the bark. And you can do that again. Could you see how flat this is? So do it again. And just rip it down towards, and that's pretty decent. Pretty decent piece of gin. And once again, it's totally unnecessary, but There's nothing wrong with practicing. And I have another dead branch right here, which is also wired, which also is about to come off. And I have to admit, this is really the first time I've really ever studied this tree in as much detail as I am today. You know, I know it needed work, but when I got it, it was summer. There was no way I was going to root prune it. And so I just decided to keep it alive and then start working on it in the spring. And holy cow, today's the 1st of February, but we're getting temperatures 10 degrees above normal, 80s, low 80s. Yesterday was low 80s, 82 I think was the high. And today the same, and for the next week, highs in the 80s. And the average temperature in zone 10 where I'm at in February is the high of 73 and a low of 53. So well above average. Okay, so should we do another piece of gin? Nah. Well, I guess I could, but are you going to be able to see it? I suppose you can. You can always just wire this guy up temporarily so you can see it. So once again, cut about halfway through. And of course, the smaller the limb is, the harder that is to accomplish. And then rip it down. And the reason I rip it down is because when branches in nature fall, they fall down. Branches don't fall up. It's really hard for a branch to fall up unless there's a temporary lapse in gravity. And there are times when I felt like gravity was temporarily suspended, but we probably won't go into that. So that's a nice piece of gin right there. Even though the branch was dead, I was able to. And then if I wanted to keep it, which I probably should, even though it's, you know, on the back of the tree, it gets an immediate painting with lime sulfur. There we go. Where was that other piece? Do that one too. So junipers are not my forte. For one thing, it's just so hard to keep them even just alive, because I'm about 100 miles south of their natural range. This Bonsai is a much more heat-adapted plant that is very popular in landscapes. But even they get old and ragged, even in the landscape. That's a great way to find new material. Okay. So do I want to do any more in the back here? Take off some of this really long growth here. There's some more dead. Is that whole branch dead too? It is. So we're going to chop it away. And now that I've turned it around, I have even a better look at the branches that are in the front. So I can trim those away a little better. You always want to go in and cut. So see, I've cut all the way to the base. So you end up with a little guy like that. cut that entire thing away. If I cut like this, if I cut this thing like this, and then just went like that, all of that would turn brown because you've cut through the cells. Now you can sometimes twist like this, which will diminish the amount of brown, but that can weaken that limb. So you really want to cut down deep and allow the smaller growth that's at the base of that cut to take its place. Okay. Well, I don't want this video to be 2.5 hours, so I think I'm just going to end it right there. So I'm always looking to the future. And so if we bring it back to the front, the future of this tree, I'm just going to take it back. I still think this limb could go. I still think next time I repot it, it could be more like that. And I want to bring the apex up more like that, and then try to mimic the curve of the trunk at the base up into the apex. So it's, you know, this is, so we have this curve, and then this is a little bit shorter, and then this is a little bit shorter, and then a little shorter, and so the top would do the same thing, shorter, 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 and have your branching and your pads. Okay. So thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. And I will not be repotting this year, but I'll definitely be working on it again. So you'll be able to see the progress of this tree and all my trees. And I know this is the season where I do a lot of cutbacks, so a lot of my videos have ended up with just sticks. So I decided to do a little bit more developed tree. That might keep your interest a little better. So thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment. I want some input on this branch. You know, you've seen it with the blanket or the dirty towel. Do we keep it or do we cut it? So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.